I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm really sad this week. It's Romania Black, and I would be remiss to admit that I am very, very sad that this is the final week of the Apothecary Diaries. Not only season 2, but for me, the Apothecary Diaries for a while. I don't know if you all realize this, but I have been for the last 48. I mean, I took a week in between, a week or so in between episodes, season 1 and season 2 starting, and then I took a week off for my vacation. But for literally, with that in mind, literally one entire year, like 52 weeks, week to week, I have been watching the Apothecary Diaries season 1 and season 2 back to back. So while you all had a break between season 1 and season 2, Romania Black did not. And that was a great thing at the time. But now I'm sitting here like, oh, now I have to wait like you all did. And that sucks. That sucks. I'm not happy. I am not happy because I love Apothecary Diaries so much. It's one of my favorite shows this year. I love Apothecary Diaries, and I'm like, I don't want to have to wait. And I know what you in the comments will say to that. You'll be like, oh, well, Romania, just start reading the light novels and you won't have to wait. But no. I have patience. I know that I was told last week through comments and on the Discord and everything that there has been an announcement of season 3. So let's slow our roll. We'll be able. I'm a patient woman. There is a lot of amazing shows I'm watching on my channel right now. If you're not checking them out, you should at least check out the first episode of them. They're great. But I'm not watching any bad shows on my channel right now. I'm loving everything I'm watching. And so I'm patient. I'm like, I have lots of things to keep me busy, but it's just going to suck because Apothecary Diaries it's such a great show, and it's been so much fun to talk about week to week with you all. And the idea that I have to wait now for season 3, I want them to take their time and make it look amazing and do the best that they can. So take all the time you need, y'all, but don't leave us waiting too long. So the good news is this is not the last week we talk about Apothecary Diaries. I know there have been season 2 shorts that have come out with each episode, like what happened with season 1. So as soon as there is, I'm gonna be pestering the Discord. So y'all on Discord, I'm gonna pester every week, be like, have you guys seen if the shorts are like compiled yet? So once they are, I'm sure somebody on YouTube will put them all together in a compilation, or the YouTube channel will do it for Apothecary Diaries, whatever. Once that happens, I will watch those episodes and do a reaction for it. And by that time, I will have seen hopefully all of the comments for episodes 23 and 24 from YouTube and Patreon and YouTube as well, and then be able to talk about those before we go on our official hiatus. But this may be a long introduction because we have some comments we need to get through, a lot of which from the Discord, some of which from the comments. It's been so much fun going through these comments and us all sharing our opinions and talking about our perspectives. I think it's important. One of the things I love about being an English teacher is learning from what I read and getting to read people's comments and learning different perspectives and going, yes, that makes so much sense, has been amazing. And especially with this series, because it does delve into some grittier, more controversial topics, as we will probably discuss at the end of this episode, because it's the season finale and there's expectations I have to be answered if you've watched my discussion from last week. So I said in the Discord for episode 23 that I'd felt bad for Shisho in the episode, and I definitely thought that love had blinded him because Shinmei was giving off so many red flags. And then Nicholas in the Discord said, well, love is blind, but also he's colorblind. And I was like, oh my God, that's the best joke. He's literally colorblind. He can't tell the difference between a red flag and a green flag. Oh my God. Ah, that's best joke of the whole week. Goes to Nicholas. Props to Nicholas. Snaps to you. You get the applause because that joke killed me. I didn't recover from that joke easily. But on the converse side of that, Be Happy had talked about in the Discord, pointing out a couple of things. The thing with Shisho was pointing out that Shisho had loved an idealized version of Shinmei, which I totally agree with. And that even when he died, the last thing he saw was Shinmei in this innocent, beautiful light, which we as the audience know is not really her. I liked Be Happy describing Shinmei as a walking black flag. I really liked that. I thought that was a very apt description for Shinmei. But I also like how Shisho talks about the feeling of guilt that Shisho has because he couldn't free her and all the obligations, which we talked about in the discussion as well. But Be Happy pointed out that a lot of people that are involved in toxic relationships, and when there's a toxic abusive mindset, they find themselves intertwined, quote unquote, in a web of psychological manipulation, trauma bonding with the abuser, not wanting to let them go, doing everything for them, when the reward is just this vicious cycle of abuse. And so Be Happy says that they felt for people who were in those relationships and wished they could get away, because getting away physically can be easy sometimes not, but getting away mentally can be much harder. And I thought that was a really, really good point to bring up. I feel like Shisho invested way more in that relationship with Shinmei than Shinmei ever invested into him, which is the tragedy of it, is that Shisho invested so much in that relationship, hoping that it would fix it, hoping that it would make it better. And we as the audience, who were given the privilege of looking at it from an outside perspective, could gaze at it and go, no, it's not going to get better for you. She's not going to love you. And that's the problem, is that sometimes you need that outsider perspective. It's like when I've been in a relationship before where I was definitely putting in more work into the relationship. And it wasn't until I got away from that and stepped back and went, oh, you were doing 120% and they were doing like nothing. And you have to step back to reveal those things. But unfortunately for Shisho, he was not able to step back and ever see that. Now, I did tell Be Happy, though, and Be Happy agreed. That being said, no matter how deep, according to Be Happy, you are in an abusive conjugal relationship, when the harm comes to the children, as it was the case of Shisho with Suirei and Lolan, aka Shisui, the other parent should and must break the cycle, not for themselves, but for their kids. And for that, Shisho could not have, according to the moderator, their entire empathy because of these family matters. And I totally agree. I feel bad for Shisho because he's tragic in a sense of, damn, you just didn't see these flags. They were right in front of you and you never saw them. And I felt bad for him. But in the same vein, I'm like, but you also stood aside and watched your two daughters get verbally and physically abused. Nope. So I was like, no, I don't feel sad for you in terms of that, because that was a terrible thing. And I like the idea that we have Locken kind of as the polar opposite of that. Locken, whenever Mao Mao got injured in season 1, did we see that man again? No, we did not. Because Locken was like, oh, hey, you hurt my daughter. Bye. So that was fun. Be Happy also pointed out in the Discord, I did not realize this, but when Boston gets punched as being reprimanded, that was actually Gao Shun. And I was like, oh. I went back, and you can kind of, once you know it's Gao Shun, you can look at the screenshot and see it and go, oh, it is him. But I wish that the anime had made more of a point to show that it was him. I wish that it was brought to more attention to the audience, especially anime onlys who don't know the contents of the novel. Because I'm like, that would have been a nice thing to point out. Then you would have had a lot more discussion with your audience about what's going on, which we're going to talk about that whole point later on, as soon as when I'm in the discussion of this episode, because I have things that I've been thinking and stewing about. But anyway, so I do feel like it was a missed opportunity for the show to show that it was Gao Shun, because I think that would have generated a little bit more discussion of, oh, his own dad had to reprimand him, which, you think in your head, oh, Gao Shun reprimanded Boston so he got off easier. I don't know. Sometimes if you've ever had someone who, I have a friend who grew up who their parent was their teacher in school, and you were like, oh, I bet you got it off easy. And they're like, no, it was 20 times worse, because my parent was more disappointed at me when I got things wrong than a regular teacher would have been. And so apparently in the novel, Gao Shun got angry when he saw that Jinshi's face got scarred. So who knows? Maybe they'll make that clear in this episode coming up, but I don't know if that'll happen. Vero-chan says with episode 22, Lee Haku's such a good guy with a big heart, and he was so emotional about the kids, and a little part of me believes he got a bit of innate paternal instinct within him. Which would make sense because he likes Pyron, and Pyron, as we've seen with Mao Mao, has maternal instincts. So they're perfectly matched for each other. Yeah, I love that. I love Pyron and Lee Haku both being like such parents, which is great, which is good to know. I have a thought about the children and Lee Haku, and I was thinking about it a lot, but we're going to wait till after this episode to see what comes of it. But I do want to go back to that comment when we get to the discussion. And then Rose Jennison for episode 23 says, I can see where you're coming from about the kids possibly surviving, but I'm hoping that Lolan did use the resurrection drug to try to save them. To be fair, it's been very hard for me to express why I feel the way I do about the children in Lolan's plot line. And I think after stewing on it for a week, I've kind of realized where my frustration is. And it's not with the children surviving in terms of in the story itself. Because, I mean, sure, if the resurrection drug being used, great, cool. That's a callback to season 1. That, as a writer and an English teacher, I kind of look at episodes when I react to them and when I discuss them. Yeah, I'm telling you what all I see, but I'm also coming at it as the perspective of somebody who teaches symbolism in class, who teaches narrative. And I do try to leave some of that at the door because I'm not on duty, but it just bleeds out and I can't help it. So, but, you know, to go on with what Rose Jennison said, I feel it would fit her character and what she said about the insects leaving their children behind and how she wants everyone to take responsibility for what they have done. I do love that. And I think you bring up an amazing point because that is some really good narrative symbolism to call back to with her character. I think that's great. And I think all of her actions concerning her parents keeps her plenty dark, even if the kids do survive. Well, at the time, yes, with all that with her parents, I do agree with that too. Again, it's been very hard for me to articulate my frustrations. I'm going to try to at the end of this episode in the discussion because I've been stewing on it for a week. But Rose says, that's just my opinion, of course. I do wonder why. This was a good point. Why Lolan wouldn't just tell Mao Mao that's what she did, considering it was just the two of them there. That is such an amazing point. And I think that's not exactly where I had stewed with my opinions about this moment, but that is a really good point. I think it's one of the things that bugged me during the initial discussion last week was that I was like, it was just Mao Mao and Lolan in the room. Mao Mao knows about the resurrection medicine. She's literally been tasked with making the resurrection medicine. So as an author of this series, you could have done two things that would have been kind of cool. One, you could have had Mao Mao internally monologue and realize, wait, did they use the resurrection medicine? And we could have, as the audience, been reminded about that. And she could have been like, okay. And Mao Mao's notorious for being like, well, who knows? I'll just go along with it. But I know why the author didn't do that, because then Mao Mao wouldn't have had the reaction that she did, which led to the moment between her and Lolan, which I was like, okay, fine. That makes sense why you didn't have that moment happen. But two, if Lolan had told her, it wouldn't have changed the fact that the kids are still seemingly dead for now. Now Mao Mao has to do double duty and convince the guards not to bury them because they're actually alive. But then again, Lolan hadn't made the deal with Jinshi yet, so maybe that's why she didn't tell Mao Mao and whatever. It's just, I get why the author did what they did, and if the kids are alive in this episode, I'm okay with it. There is a choice the author has made regarding saving the children, and if Lolan survives, there is a repercussion of her making that decision as a writer that I think affects how I have to go into the series watching from here forward. But I want to see the episode and then talk about it in the discussion. But I'm not opposed to Lolan living and the children living. It just affects where I thought the series was going tone-wise and where it's actually seeming to be going. But I could be wrong. The show could totally be like, gotcha, bitch. And that's fine. I would actually hope for that. But we'll talk more about it when we get to the actual episode. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So I definitely want to check out this episode before we get to that. So yeah, so anyway, before we start as well, I want to give a big shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon, because you all have been amazing. Everyone on Patreon that supports me, those of you who are part of the $1 or $5 a month subscriptions, y'all donate a couple of your hard-earned bucks to help me in this channel, and that means a lot to me, and I really appreciate every single one of you. And those of you in the philanthropy tier, you offer me $10 a month, and you all are rock stars. Stellar, amazing, awesome. Kudos to you all. So I want to give a shout out to you because you're so wonderful. So Alex Cornejo, Be Happy, Bisa, Dana, Damage3245, Danger Zone, Devorin, Destiny Marie. I have to say Danger Zone like that. Eric El Cuno, Ichu, Faisho, Ghostly Turnip, Elfreya, Liam Posel, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Willie Morris, Translucent Men, Sunspots, and Shimoyama. Thank you all so much. Thanks to you on Patreon as well. Those of you on YouTube that don't have the funds, I get it. In this economy, I get it. If you're liking and subscribing to this channel and the videos, that works as well. You do what you gotta do. But thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I think I've sweated already. My armpits are already sweaty. I'm glad I wore a sleeveless shirt because it's already like, but that's fine. We do what we can. So in any case, I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. But we are going to start the season 2 finale of Apothecary Diaries, y'all. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. As soon as we learned the name of this episode, I was immediately thinking of RuPaul going, "This is the beginning." All right, let's spill the tea on this episode. This was an amazing finale. Oh my God. This is the beginning. I'm going to be saying that every time it comes up in this episode so that you can get it stuck in your head too, and it can drive you crazy all day. So, because now it's going to drive me crazy all day. This was an amazing season finale. Oh my God. Oh, yes. Apothecary Diaries, you have teased us so much this season, and you finally bring us some goods. But unfortunately, the person getting teased the most in this series is poor Jinshi. Bless his heart. Bless his heart. He is getting so teased in this series. But you know what? This is a slow burn. So baby steps, and we are making baby steps throughout this, and I'm excited about it. So we need to talk about this series. So, okay, the whole kids and the whole Lowland thing, we're going to talk about separately as 2 separate things as we go through this episode. I am happy with the conclusion with the kids. I am happy about that. Lowland, we're gonna put her over here for now. We're gonna put baby in a corner. We're gonna put Shisui in a corner for now. But the kids thing, we're gonna talk about it with it as well. But damn, this episode was so good. This episode was amazing. So yeah, the remnants of the battle, we see that. I thought at first we were gonna backtrack and go right back to the whole Gaoshun and Basen thing, but we don't do that. They did not show us that, so that's fine. That's okay. We at least know about it now. But yeah, so this is the beginning is the episode title. It's pretty much confirmed that with the exception of Suirei, Shisui, and the children, everybody else in the Shi clan is dead. Is with the exception. Now, the 4 kids that ended up living that are now with Aduo, mother of mothers, mother of dragons. We will talk about Aduo. I freaking love Aduo. We're going to talk about her and Suirei and all that when we get to it. But I feel like those kids were maybe not as in the know about what was going on as we have to call him Cho now. Kyo is a dead name. Kyo is no longer. So we're going to call him Cho. But as far as Cho is concerned, Cho was the only one who I think got what was going on. The moment he saw his mom with Shinmei and saw the guy and all of that, I think I think that Cho figured out what was happening. And so it is kind of for the better that Cho doesn't have his memory anymore. Is it kind of convenient to the plot that he's the only one that forgot? Highly convenient to the plot. That was a transparent moment with the author, like, okay, author, he's the only one that forgets. All right. But I'm willing to forgive it because it works out in the favor of the story as a whole. But it is very much a like, oh, the one of the 5 that figured everything out is the one that forgets. Yeah, it's a very transparent see-through writer moment, but it's fine. I'm okay with it. But anyway, so I feel like the 4 children that didn't lose their memories, they didn't fully know what was going on. So I'm sure they took losing their parents horrifyingly hard. But I don't think they knew exactly what was going on. I don't even know if they knew that their parents were there in the Stronghold. As far as we know, they think their parents are still back at the village, maybe. We don't even know. I'm sure they figured out the She clan's been dismantled, so they probably have come to their own conclusions. But I think that they were less impacted by the overall situation than Cho was up until he lost his memory. So there is that, right? There is that. But yeah, so pretty much they're the only survivors of all of this. And then we go back in. I'm glad we got confirmation about Mao Mao's bruise on her neck that was caused by Shinmei. I'm glad we got confirmation of that because I couldn't quite remember. And I'm glad that Jinshi was concerned about it scarring. Again, what's so funny in all of this, I didn't bring Whiteboard Kun out for this episode because there's nothing really to like dive deep into as far as breaking it down on the board, but I guess you could have. But I do love the comparison that you have Jinshi, who thinks so highly of Mao Mao. He thinks so highly of her. And he's like, don't let that scar, don't hurt yourself and all this. I'm like, wait, has he has found out about the scars from the poisons she's used, but he doesn't want her to hurt herself more than she needs to. And then meanwhile, you have Mao Mao who's not concerned. So I like that dynamic between the two of them. This entire scene in the carriage, chef's kiss. This entire scene was amazingly done. I loved this. I loved him getting nervous around her, and then he was tired, and then he was like, you know, all I could think about when he talks about getting the essential boner, and she's like, oh, you're just tired, Master Jinshi. I thought of Twittering Birds Never Fly, which is a BL series. It's very good. It's very dark, very gritty, very angsty. It's not sunshine and rainbows, but there is a character in that series who he talks about, like, he kind of gets like a heart on during one of the scenes, and he talks about having a fatigue boner. I am not a man, nor do I have a penis, so I don't know how that works. So those of you who do probably know more than me. So, but he talks about like getting a fatigue. He blames it on fatigue is why he has an erection, and it's like, okay. But it works in the scene. In the context of here, it works really well too. But yeah, I love how Jinshi is just kind of cautious around her, and then she questions about the cut on his face. I like the way that it was worded, where he just explains about granting the wish and getting the scar, and Mao Mao kind of puts two and two together and maybe connects that it's involving Shisui, but she doesn't know the full scope of things, because I think part of that is really meant to be just between Lowland and Jinshi. I think that was part of it. I honestly, when she undid the bandages and looked at his scar, I really thought she was going to re-sew it, but then she explained that she was way too tired, so she probably could have sewed it up a little bit better. Loman ends up sewing it up, she believes, and makes it look a little bit more decent, but these guys on this military force need to learn some sewing skills. Joking. But I love how she talks about the scar with him, and that Mao Mao girl, you feisty minx, she's just sitting there like caressing his cheek. Girl, that is a strategy move, that is a playbook move. You think that that's not gonna affect him, girl? So but I love that she talks about just sit back, like, you know, I can't just sit back in the place. What I love about this episode, because this is the beginning, the episode title in itself, the title in itself being the beginning, is referring to, I love to imagine that these last two seasons have literally just been the prologue, honestly, of a damn slow burn. Because they really have, if you think about it. We spent 2 seasons with Jinshi and Mao Mao hiding essentially who they were from each other, because Mao Mao has been very guarded, and she's still very guarded, but she's had a lot of her emotional side and her real side come out, whether it's been interacting with Lowland or here talking with Jinshi one-on-one. And really, this has been the prologue for Jinshi, because he spent the last 2 seasons pretending to be, you know, Jinshi the eunuch and not accepting his rightful place as the emperor's son, but essentially brother. And so now, at the end of this season, you have finally Jinshi and Mao Mao talking one-on-one, being completely open and honest with one another. For as far as they've gone, they've still got a ways to go. Do I think they're being 100% honest with each other? Well, no, because Mao Mao's guarded as F. But I do believe that they are, you know, she's acknowledged that he's the prince, and she's fine with that, and he doesn't have to hide it anymore. She has accepted the fact that the man has a somewhat large frog, and she's totally fine with that. Maybe not totally fine, but she's okay with that. And Jinshi is now able to be more of himself around her, as we will talk about with that bite scene. Ah! So we'll get there. We gotta go in chronological order or I'm gonna lose it. So yes, I'm keeping myself subdued until we get to that scene. Don't you worry. I got lots of thoughts. But I love that the beginning, this is the beginning, is essentially talking about how now they're finally face to face looking at each other, being honest with one another. And now we go from here. So it's like we spent these last 2 seasons. At the very beginning of the series, you had Jinshi playing the eunuch and being in the rear palace trying to avoid his duties as prince. You had Mao Mao getting kidnapped and plucked out of the apothecary in the brothel to go to the rear palace. And now where do we end the series? Mao Mao's back at the apothecary and the brothel for now. We'll talk about that. And Jinshi is now assuming, it's funny, he still is posing. He still looks like Jinshi the eunuch, which is funny. But for all intents and purposes, he is still doing the duties. But old habits die hard, as Mao Mao says. And he's not completely changed his look. Is he going to change his look for future seasons? He might. Someone made a comment talking about how Jinshi couldn't go back to the rear palace as the eunuch because people spread rumors and word gets around and they're going to know. The army knows now that Jinshi the eunuch, which really, does all the army know that Jinshi the eunuch is the crown prince or was the crown prince, or was that just Lihaku and Basen? I don't know. We'll see where they go with that, if they'll change his look up for future seasons and they just kept it the same for this episode for continuity purposes. But I like the fact that they can talk to one another and be honest. And she's like, don't put yourself in danger on purpose. I like her kind of chiding him. She's chiding the Emperor's, we're going to call him brother in this episode, even though we know that he's the son in reality. We're going to say brother for sake of this episode. But she's like, you're the brother of the Emperor, but she has like the gonads to just like talk to him and be like, when you get hurt, the people around you get in trouble. She's not wrong, but that is like, to me, that is like, if I were Jinshi sitting there watching Mao Mao tell me that, I'd be like, this is why you and I are meant to be together. Because what other woman in this entire series could sit down with Jinshi and have a conversation with him like this? Maybe Lolan, but Lolan is not interested in Jinshi. She not interested in that. But I feel like Mao Mao, this proves that she's like the perfect person for Jinshi, because she is rational enough and not swayed into delirium by his looks to sit down with him and tell him like it is. That is marriage business. That is like marriage goals, you and your partner looking each other in the eye, having these conversations. That is, that just sets them up for me. And I love that Jinshi kind of like laughs about it, being like, you're the first person who would tell me that or have, the balls to say that. But he says, you're right. And I love when he grabs the bandage out of her hand. He deliberately puts his hand in hers. He doesn't just tentatively grab it or quickly grab it. He makes sure that his hand is in hers. The romance in this episode was so damn good. It was so good. He's like, I wasn't planning this. And I love that she fixes it. She's like, which is also very like partner behavior. She's like, let me do it. Don't do this yourself. And that's when they had the conversation about Lolan. Were you and Lolan close? The answer is yes. Were you friends? The answer is yes. And for the first time, Mao Mao has to actually think about it and go, were we close? Were we friends? And for Mao Mao, who's not really had any friends, I feel like to her, all the women in the brothel are kind of like sisters. They're kind of like siblings, especially the 3 princesses. So she's like, the 3 princesses were kind of like more siblings than friends. So we were close, but I wouldn't describe it as just a simple friendship. And then she's like, but also, she's sitting there going, were Lolan and Xiaolon my friends? And I think this is the first time she actually has to rationally sit down and go, yeah, they were. They were my friends. They were close to me. Which is, she's like, from my point of view, I think that would be mostly true. Lolan, and I like she corrects it to Shisui and Xiaolon. And she thinks back to the 3 of them playing together, which now the OP has a bigger meaning of, the 2 of them leaving her at the end, which is really sad. We'll talk about it when we get to it. Hanging out as a trio wasn't bad at all. But I don't know how Shisui felt. That's the thing. She says, I never figured her out. And a part of me is like, Mao Mao, girl, did you not ever figure it out? I mean, I guess I could see her being truthful there and that she didn't actually know, which is very sad and hurtful, especially considering the end credits scene, which we'll talk about when we get to it. Because if she didn't actually know how she felt, it kind of sucks because we, the audience, are like, no, Shizui loved you. Like romantically, legitimately loved you, girl. And if she didn't actually know that, a part of me would like to think that Mao Mao does know that Shizui liked her, and she's just kind of like in denial mode, like she is with Jinshi sometimes. But we don't know. She says she doesn't know for sure. But I mean, Xiaolon, she has to know is her friend, right? We'll talk about the note when we get it to her. And I think that for Jinshi, he's like, okay, well, she liked you, but I'm not going to say anything. And he's like, I feel the same. When he says, I feel the same, I don't know how she felt. I feel like that's kind of a double-edged statement where Jinshi on the one hand is like, I don't know how Shizui felt. She was very mysterious. But on the other hand, it also kind of ties to the fact that he never really knows how Mao Mao fully thinks of him because Mao Mao is so, like, guarded with what she, you know, says and does. So it all ended before I understood any of it at all. And with that, Mao Mao kind of comes to the conclusion that Shizui is possibly dead. But she chooses not to focus on that because she thinks of what Shizui told her, to please take care of the rest. Now, what I like about the kids scene is in this moment, it is made clear to us that Mao Mao's whole thing is that Loman has told her not to rely upon conjecture, to wait for hard-cut evidence. So what I like is when a series like this reveals things very subtly to us. It doesn't have to be stated. Like, we're a smart audience. We don't need things dumbed down to us. We can figure things out on our own if you give us just the context clues that we need. Hashtag media literacy. And so what I like about this scene is that there's little glances, little things that Mao Mao thinks about that she's like, makes us, the audience, go, okay, Mao Mao had considered the possibility that the kids could have been given the resurrection medicine. Even if it was subconsciously in her mind, she was maybe mulling over that possibility. But because there was no concrete evidence, she didn't try the medicine herself, obviously. She doesn't know if that's true or not. And so she has to go with what has been put in front of her. What has been put in front of her are the kids aren't breathing and they seem to not have a pulse, which would make us believe they are dead. And that's what we have to go with unless we are proven otherwise, which ends up happening in this episode, which is great. I really liked that scene. I liked that. And I liked her being like, well, I'm just doing what Lolan told me to do because that's what we can do in the moment. But before we get to that, I like Jinshi being like, yes, I'm very tired. And she's like, well, don't just sleep here. And he's like, why not? And she's like, well, it's dirty. And he's like, yes, I'm aware. What I love about this scene, when he drags her down to sleep next to him, everything about this scene is amazing. Everything about this scene is amazing. The way that their hair is tousled around their face, the animation of it, mwah, 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 chef's kiss all around. But what I love about it is that Jinshi has grit to him. Jinshi has a dark, kinky side to him. And I'm like, yes, please, sir. Because Mao Mao has a dark, kinky side to her. These two apothecary detective prince duos, they are kinky and dark underneath the surface. And I like that about them because it makes them unique and it makes them stand out and it makes me want to root for them. Because Mao Mao loves her poisons. She loves being a little bit masochistic to herself. She's not afraid to get down and dirty. Like, girl is so good for that uniqueness about her. And then Jinshi, who appears prim and pristine and proper and is royalty, is actually got a kinky side. He's got a kinky side. He is a little bit dark, but like dark in a good way. Not dark in like OG Emperor gross way. No. But he has inherited a little bit of that, like got some edge to him. Because no offense, but the emperor that's the current emperor, he's got like some dad jokes and he's got a type, but he's kind of vanilla compared to Jinshi, at least from what we've seen. But I don't know. I can't say that because he likes some kinky stuff as the books that Mao Mao were teaching the other girls. So that might not be true. That might not be true. He might actually be a little bit kinky too. So, but Jinshi not being afraid to get dirty with Mao Mao, girl, read the room. He is basically telling you, like, you put yourself down as dirty and unclean. He's like, then I'll be dirty and unclean with you. And I'm like, oh, girl, it's so good. It's so good. I love the scene where he's like holding her and they're both so near each other. Like, there's so much sexual tension there. It's really, really well done. And she talks about his hands being cold, which, again, relating to the OG Emperor a little bit. And he's like, then why are you here? And she's like, even I feel pity towards children. I love that. And he's like, is that so? I thought your mentor forbade you from touching corpses. She's like, shit, don't bring up facts. Don't fact check me. Don't do this. I love it. He looks also so much bigger than her in this moment. She's like, damn it, he's sharp. It's almost like he's a prince or something. And as good at his job. And then he's like, how did you get hurt? And she says, he's like, were you assaulted? And she's like, it was a woman. Don't be going all crazy. It's fine. I called her a hag. It's okay. Why is he concerned about my chastity at a time like this? Well, girl, because Jinshi is a jealous man and he does not want any other man being near you. So that's why, you know. And he's like, okay. I just love when he looks at her like that. He just has this like serious concern. I love it. And he doesn't believe that it'll fade quickly. And she's like, may I say the exact same thing to you too? And he's like, well, a woman hurt me too. But then what I love about it is he doesn't mind the scar. He's like, well, I'm a man. This isn't an issue. And she's like, you're more than just a man. You're also, you know, royalty. And he's like, I don't care. And she's like, then neither do I. If a simple scar would nullify my value, then so be it. I like that she's not vain and says it there. And to him, he's like, well, it's not just the fact that you would have a scar, because Jinshi would love her no matter what happened to her body, whether it was like she had a physical scar or whatever. To him, it's like, I wouldn't want you to get hurt, right? And I don't want you to feel like that's okay. He's like, am I the kind of man who would lose all of his value from just a scar? I love that line. And then the answer that she gives him is so good. When she looks at him and she shakes her head and she's like, no, is my pretty face the only thing that has value? And she's like, no. And I like that she smiles there. And then she actually says to him, a few more scars might be helpful to you. And the way she like runs her hand, I'm like, girl, you do not know what you are doing. She's like, he's too beautiful. And that causes ripples in the hearts of the people around them and makes them focus on just his beauty. But his true essence isn't flamboyant like his appearance. He's much more solid and practical. Girl, complimenting him. I wish he could hear it. I wish he could hear her compliments. I was hoping she was saying it out loud. That's more valuable than his outer beauty. I love that the two of them look at each other and they are not focused on what's on the outside, but what's on the inside that they love. And the way she smiles at him so earnestly in that moment, saying, you've become more manly than before. Well, girl, that was it. At that point, you just said exactly what he needed to hear. And the frog started croaking and it was over from there. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I have been doing very well to hold my composure and hold back. But when he said here, he's like, I thought I did better than expected, all things considered. And then she's like, well, why don't you just try to go get some sleep right now? He's like, I'm fine. She's like, well, maybe some painkillers would be fine. And the way he's like, I could go for another half hour. And I was like, oh, and she's like, what do you mean by another half hour? And I'm like, girl, he was, if you had consented, he was ready for a quickie. And I'm like, right in front of the children? I was like, Jinshi, in front of the dead children? Really? So I'm glad that as much as we're all horny on Maine for Jinmao and for Jinshi and Mao Mao to get together, I was like, think of the children. Saved by the resurrected corpses. Mao Mao, my girl. And she's like, what is he saying when he looks that exhausted? Jinshi is like, he is so horny on Maine for Mao Mao. And just as he's about to like do something, then they get interrupted by the kids, which is probably for the best, because I think Jinshi would have been a little bit more consenting if he'd had some sleep. So the thing in this moment is that the kids start to regain their pulse, which the resurrection medicine started to wear off, which honestly, I'm okay with the timeline of this because it's been several hours since they were given the medicine. And so that all checks out. That all works. Is it like the perfect cheesy poetry of the sunlight coming in as they wake up? Well, yes. But that's fine. We're all here for it. We're all excited about it. And then Mao Mao, as my dogs are going crazy, Mao Mao immediately goes into like nurse mode, doctor mode, where she's like, I need hot water. We got to get some stuff for these kids. We got to get them all together. Like, for a woman that does not want children herself and who thinks she has no love in her heart, that she lost it in the womb, Mao Mao, my girl, you have turned a new leaf this season. And that's one of the things I do love about this scene is it is an amazing callback from season 1, because in season 1, Mao Mao's like, I don't have any maternal instincts. I don't care about children. I don't want children. I could never do that. I've lost all that when I was born, all this. And look, as somebody that does not want to have biological children myself, but is open to the idea of adopting children, I like kids. Kids are great. I would adopt a child if I had the financial stability to raise a child right now. I would do that. But I, as someone who does not want to give birth to a child biologically and has no interest in that, I can relate a lot to Mao Mao in her sharing that similar feeling, but that doesn't mean she doesn't care about the kids. And what I like about this scene is that it shows her kind of taking that step from inwardly kind of being in denial of that care and concern to her showing it right out in the open in this scene. I love that. And to Jinshi, he's like, Jinshi's all about it. And he's like, I'll help you. And she's like, anything warm, clothes, food, something. She's like, I don't know what Master Jinshi will do with the resurrected children, but this is what I was brought here to do. It was all part of Lolan's plan, which is a pretty brilliant plan in itself, because Lolan set it up where she would get Mao Mao to watch over the kids for when they woke up, because she knew Mao Mao was the type of person that would keep her word, but also is smart enough as an apothecary to know kind of the basics of what to do when they do wake up. So Lolan planned that out perfectly. And then set up Jinshi to be like, once they've died once, you've got to keep them alive, which is essentially just Suirei and the kids. And what I like in that moment is that Shisui trusted that both Jinshi and Mao Mao were smart enough to figure their parts out, right? And I like that he kind of just smiles and he's like, I was tricked by a fox. And I was like, no, sir, you were tricked by a tanuki. But similarly, I like that he takes it well. In that moment, he kind of seems like his dad, his brother, the emperor, in that moment where he's like, okay, all right, fine. And she's like, Jinshi, let's get going. And so then he gets Gaoshun in on it as well. I love just Jinshi where she's like, I need more help, bring Suirei if possible. And the way that Jinshi has the look on his face like, all right, Gaoshun, go get her. Jinshi having so much pride and admiration for Mao Mao in this moment as she does her thing. This entire scene in this damn cart before we even got back to the Vergers house and all that, I was like, Jinshi has leveled up to being like top husbando material. Like Hawk from Yona the Dawn is still king in my mind. He's still king supreme of the husbandos. But Jinshi jumped up there. Jinshi jumped up there real high right now. I was like, you've entered the courtship, sir, of the husbandos. Because I was like, oh, 100%. Yes, please. And then daylight breaks and we get all of them bound up. And I like Jinshi when he sets the hot water down, he gets beside her. And if I tell you this, the way that I was just 1000% in Swoonville whenever he said, can we continue some other time? Because he's just like, one, understanding that she's got a job to do and she's going to not be distracted. But two, we love a consenting king. And this man just asked for her consent to be like, hey, are you cool with picking this up where we left off at another time when it's more convenient for you? And the way he whispered it to her, oh my God. And she goes, yeah, sure. She knew exactly what he meant. She knew what he meant in the moment. She knew. If she'd been like, oh, no, get out of here. She could have done that. She could have easily been like, no, get out, and like sent him away. She knew exactly what she was agreeing to. And he's like, okay, I'm going to hold you to it. And then he just leaves. He's like, all right, I'll take care of business while I wait. And man, Suirei is the master. She is the master of the dramatic hair flip when he's like, the children have come back to life. And the way she's like, the hair flipping dramatically in the sunlight. Girl, I'll let you have a pass because you're related to Jinshi. She can't help it. She can't help it that the emperor's grandchildren have the dramatic sunlight filtering through the hair flip. She can't help it. I love it. Her and Jinshi have genetically inherited it. Also, Jinshi knows that she's his cousin now. So he's like, all right, let her go. Jinshi seems so much more mature in that moment too. I loved it. I loved it. He also looks like he needs to get some sleep. So meanwhile, time passes. festives for the beginning of the year. Some time has passed, and we see the three princesses, Pyrene and Mei Mei, and I forget the other one's name. So we forget them. I forget her name, but we see them again. And so the new crown prince is being revealed to everyone. Okay, with all the festivities, our guests are quite generous. So yeah, I like that Mao Mao called her Grams too, because she does. The owner of the brothel feels like a grandmother, like a little granny. That all the guests are coming in with money, and she's super excited about it because she's rolling in the dough, and they're like, ha ha ha. I like Mei Mei painting on her lips though. And then Gyokyo is going to be the empress. I think that's such a smart choice because we talked about this in previous episodes. Li Shu is off of the, she's not a possibility because she's too young. There's no concubine in Lowland's position right now that we know of. Li Hua is super kind, but we were talking about this in the Discord a few weeks ago. Li Hua is not a good choice for empress. Not because that she's smart. She's smart, she's capable, but she's a little too trusting. And we've seen that this season with Shin and with the other handmaids and ladies in waiting from the previous season. Li Hua trusts a little too much, and Gyokyo is the right level of cautious. She knows how her life could be in jeopardy because it has been before, and her child's life has been in jeopardy before. And so she knows to keep things close to the vest. Not that Li Hua doesn't, because she lost a child. She lost her son who would have been the crown prince. But I feel like, we'll see if Li Hua has a son as well. And then it's going to be like dueling brothers for the throne. But yeah, I think that Gyokyo is a great choice for empress. And then we get to see him! Oh, he looks just like the emperor. He has the emperor's like square cut face. The genetics came through a little bit this time for the emperor. The genetics came through. They couldn't give the son pink hair apparently, so they gave him mauve hair, but I'll take the mauve. It's so cute. Now to be fair, Li Hua's son had like little light blue hair too, but he has little mauve hair. It's so cute. It's like got a little tinge of pink to it. It's sweet. I love it. He looks so cute. I want to see him grow up too. And then Ling Li being the sweet sister. Adorable. Adorable. Yeah, everybody just crowding around him. So cute. So cute. Okay. And then after the baby was delivered, they decided to keep Loman in the palace. I love that. I love that for a couple reasons. I love it, one, because he's getting old. Loman has got some age on him. And no offense, but him staying in the village in a house by himself, away from the brothel, if something happened to him, like if he fell. I've had grandparents and great-grandparents that are old enough to know what that's like. Like, old people fall real easily, and a fall for us is nothing. A fall for an older person could be life-threatening, especially in these times. So I feel like for Loman, I was a little bit worried this season that when he was by himself, I was like, oh, what if something happens? But now I'm like, okay, he's in the rear palace. He's with the quack doctor. Somebody's with him. So he's not, one, if something happens with his health, there's someone there to help him, and he's in the palace where the best of the best is. Two, he's not by himself. He has the quack doctor to keep him company and little Mao Mao the cat. So that's cute. The only sad thing is that he can't see Mao Mao right now, but with Mao Mao's connections to Jinshi, I think if she really wanted to see him, she could see him. So, But yeah. So his skills as a doctor are solid. So they've kind of righted the wrong and decided to keep him there. So yeah, so Jinshi's been busy doing like, I love the current emperor was just like, oh cool, so yes, you are the prince, but get back to work. I ain't filling out these taxes, you do it. Which is, I think that's fine. I think Jinshi's okay with it. But I wonder what's going to happen next season with all of this, And Mao Mao, what I like about this is since Gyokyo is going to be the empress, she's moving on up. And so Mao Mao is not going to need to be her lady in waiting. I do wonder if they're going to ask for her services because the envoys conveniently left the plot. They conveniently left the plot. But I'm like, this season, if it's shown us anything, is that people they have attempted the lives of those connected to the royal family. So just because she had this baby successfully without any problems, I'm like, there could be still people trying to poison this kid to make sure he doesn't grow up to be the emperor. So you're not out of the woods yet just because you had a successful birth. And so I'm going to be curious to see, like, if they bring Mao Mao back, are they going to have a taster? How's that going to work? What are they going to do? So that'll be interesting to see. But I think it does make sense for her to go back to the pleasure district if her dad stayed in the palace, because one, she's comfortable in the pleasure district because she's comfortable in the Verdigris house because she grew up there. Two, since her dad Loman is in the palace now, they need an apothecary, and Mao Mao's skills are great. And then we have Cho. So again, she's like, my dad's medicines he had stocked up are running out, so I've got to make new ones. And then I like that he calls Mao Mao Freckles. I think that's so cute. Okay, my main thing is the whole storyline with Cho. I think that makes the kids not dying worth it for me, because he was a cute character and I was afraid he wasn't going to be in the series anymore. So I like that he is going to be a thorn in Jinshi's side for the rest of this series. He is going to be a cock block to Jinshi's frog for the rest of this series. And it's going to be for humorous effect, and we're all going to laugh and enjoy it, so that's fine. But I love that Mao Mao is getting a chance to, like, raise a kid, essentially, to maybe become an apothecary too, you know, so that she can pass on the business to him. I would love that. I would love if Cho became an apothecary like Mao Mao, and he was able to work in the Verdigris house when he was older as an apothecary. That would be great, right? I would love that. And plus, the reason I would love that is because eventually I think Mao Mao and Jinshi are going to get together, and I don't know if she'll stay in the Verdigris house as an apothecary if they do get together. So she's like, they all came back to life. And I do love, one thing I also loved about the medicine being a thing is that it was a good callback to the one episode where Sweet Ray was like, I did say it could cause paralysis. I did say it could cause memory loss. I did say I was experimenting on it on myself before I gave it to the kids. All that adds up, and I really like that. So that all narratively made sense in the end. So we do establish that Cho has some light paralyzation on one side of his body, and he lost his memory. He should consider himself lucky he came back from that state at all. So to me, that sets him up to be the apothecary at Verdigris house and taking over from Mao Mao in the future really well, because if he's paralyzed on one side, even just slightly, that means he probably won't be able to work like a manual labor job in the future. He probably won't be able to do that. And much like Loman, even though Cho isn't a eunuch, much like Loman, he does have a physical disability now. So he needs to find some way to make a living and survive in this world. And if he learns from Mao Mao and becomes an apothecary as well, there's just so many opportunities that open up with this plot development. Like, for example, if Cho is learning from Mao Mao to become an apothecary, she's passing her skills on to the next generation, which is really sweet. And also, in addition to that, I could see, like, something down the road, Mao Mao gets sick or gets hurt or poisoned or something, and Cho saves her, and it's a nice callback and a full circle moment. That would be really good. So I am all for all of the narrative possibilities that this has opened up. And that makes me feel a lot better about that decision to bring them back, right? So then she's like, I don't know what their reasoning was, but all the children who woke up first were basically adopted by the former high-ranking concubine, Aduo. Look, one, how could you not love Aduo? She's insanely beautiful and kind and sweet. But what I love about it is that Aduo is such a Aduo getting the opportunity to be a mother to these children who lost their parents when she lost her uterus and is no longer to have children of her own and was denied the ability to be a parent. That just, like, immediately warmed my heart. Like, the symbolism of Aduo losing her child, allegedly, unless it's Jinshi, but still, y'all know what I mean. Her losing that opportunity to be a parent and then gaining 4 children in the process. You could say 5 if you count Sweet Ray, but she's a grown-ass woman. But, I mean, the symbolism, and it's just, oh, it's so good, it's so good. And plus, they're all set up because the Emperor gave Aduo a house in the palace, but away from all the drama, so she can take care of those kids, and they won't be pestered or bothered. just, that was amazing. I love that development. I love it. Give that woman all the kids. And she also took in Sui Ray. I love it. And you know what? Sui Ray, from being someone denied the chance of being part of the royal family. Hello, Aduo, in the same boat. So yes, and plus, Sui Ray caused trouble all over the palace, but it seems they determined she has extenuating circumstances. Moreover, she carries the blood of the late emperor. So yeah, the thing about it is they're like, you technically are the emperor's granddaughter, so we're not gonna just kick you out to the curb, you know, but you can come stay in the palace with Aduo. And Aduo is like, yes. And Aduo is like the sweetest, so I am 1,000 times for this. Yes, please. And she'll be under surveillance, so she won't be executed. That makes sense. So Cho is allowed to come to the pleasure district so that he's not around the other kids and that he won't get reminded of all of that. Which, you know what? On the one hand, that is kind of sad. He can't be with his friends again. But on the other hand, if he were to remember and go through all that trauma, yeah, that wouldn't be good either. So it is what it is. And plus, he looks so happy there. So it's like, ugh, Cho. All right. So yeah. It was a last resort since he remembered the sound of his former name. It's cute. She gives him brown sugar, which is awesome. So then Sekiyu comes and gives her the news. The one thing that was sad about this episode is the idea that Xiaolon has moved on. The idea of Xiaolon, so I'm guessing the spinoff, unless we see Xiaolon again, is going to just basically cover the events of season 1 and season 2. Unless she, which, you know what? Xiaolon could come back in the story later on. They could end up going to whatever concubine she works for, and we see her again. So she's not written off in this series, right? She's not written off, and that's good. But yeah, this part was sad for me because Xiaolon has been a constant in Mao Mao's life since she came to the Rear Palace, and for years at this point, and one of her closest friends. And the fact that Mao Mao didn't get to say goodbye to her, I think the fact that Mao Mao did not get to formally, she kind of had a last moment with Lolan. So I'm going to consider it a goodbye moment. They kind of had a moment of closure a little bit. Not closure like you maybe would want, but she at least got to see her one more time before things went down. Xiaolon, she got kidnapped and taken away. So she didn't get to say goodbye to Xiaolon. And that just feels so sad. And then to see her with the little bows she put in her hair. Cute. And then we don't get to see her face there, but we see her moving on with someone else. Oh. And then Mao Mao crying. I mean, I understand why Mao Mao cries. And for Mao Mao to cry is such a big character moment for her as well. Because she's admitting she had a friend and she's feeling the loss of losing them. Our girl has grown. Mao Mao has grown from being a girl that's like, I don't have feelings. I don't care about anybody. To having some big feelings and really caring about them. And it just warms my heart. It warms my heart for Mao Mao. I love it. And then we have the snow. And we see the pleasure district looks so beautiful with the red lights and the snow. It almost looks pink. So the moment they said they couldn't find Shisui's corpse, I was like, I think my theory is that the one guy, the one guard who was leaving, he found her in the snow and helped her get away. And then she kept the pin, and we'll talk about that whole scene and everything. I think he helped her get out, right? And maybe one day she'll run into him and he'll tell her, but we're going to talk about that last scene when we get to it. She's like, I hope they don't find her. Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things. She's like, I hope they never find her. I think it's one of those things where Mao Mao does not want the confirmation of her being dead. She's like, I'd rather spend my life thinking that she escaped and is living happily somewhere than to know that she's dead. And it's like, okay. All right. So she's still testing medicine on herself. Girl, her about to cut her pinky off. I was like, that's a little much. And luckily, I wonder if she sensed Jinshi coming. And Jinshi's like, what are you doing? Gao Shun's like, God help me. I loved Gao Shun and the old lady waiting on the other side of the door like they were just waiting to see. Because here's the deal. Now that Mao Mao works in the house, I'm sure that the old lady's happy. I'm sure Grams is fine with it. But if Jinshi proposes to Mao Mao to marry, I mean, at this point you have the crown prince, so he's going to be in line to take over from the emperor down the road. Jinshi does not have the next in line royal status anymore, but Jinshi's still a prince, technically, and Jinshi has a lot of money, technically, and a lot of stability in that palace, technically. So Grams is over here thinking, oh, if you make an offer to buy Mao Mao as your bride, I'm gonna make a lot of money off of this. And she knows that Mao Mao likes him, so she's like, absolutely, let's do this. You know what we do. He's like, I deserve a break every now and then. So yeah, of course, Gao Xun and her are like on the other side of the door, hoping that something happens between them. But so I love she just gives him the tea and leaves, and she's like, tee hee hee. She's ready for Mao Mao to just go off with Jinshi, which good for us. She's like, what's gotten into her? Mao Mao, she is ready to let Jinshi have you. So even though it's cleaned up, it's still going to be a scar. And she's like, did my dad redo the stitches? Looks like it. Probably. She's like, well, you seem rather tired. And I love that he just gripes to her. He's like, I've been managing all her stuff. The land's owned by the Shi clan and so on. I love he comes to her and he just grumbles to her. I love that they're on this level playing field of now he can just come and like share his, exhaustions and everything. And she's just like, okay, cool. He can just like gripe to her about the stuff that's making him frustrated. She's like, I heard the members of the Shi clan were mostly executed already. And their lands were being reclaimed by the government. And she's like, it's a full of great I love that I thought she was saying this out loud. And so she was just thinking this to herself. And one thing that Mao Mao maybe will work on for future seasons is that she thinks a lot of these things in her head that would be helpful for her to communicate with Jinshi back and forth, start conversations, start those two chatting together. But she's not there yet. She's like, I hope they make a lot of paper, because of course she would. So the girls can have the stuff. And he's like, stop treating me like I don't exist. And she's like, I actually was treating you like you did exist and talking about you in my head. I just wasn't saying it out loud. And I like she like speaks to her like, hey, I'm right here. And she says, sorry, old habits. So one good thing is they are both communicating more to each other slowly but surely. And he's like, you have a promise to keep. And she's like, a promise? And he's like, well, I got you your ice treat ingredients. And she's like, oh, the hair stick. And then she's like, ugh. He took this a lot better than I thought he would. When she talked about the hair stick and that she gave it to someone, I thought he was going to get mad, or I thought he was going to get kind of depressed about it. But I think when he realizes that she gave it to Lolan, she's like, we might never find it. And he's like, oh, she's like, I asked her to give it back to me someday, which we're going to talk about. But, and he goes, oh, I see. And I thought he'd be madder. I thought he would be jealous or mad that she gave it away. But I think he knows that she cared about Shisui, whether she wants to admit it or not. And he's like, okay. And he understands that it's a sensitive subject to her. And so Jinshi, being amazing in this scene, doesn't press her about it and doesn't get mad about it, right? He's like, well, then you can fulfill your other promise then. And that's listening to what she says. And then she does it. She sits there and she's like, okay, go ahead. And he's like, shit, she's actually going to listen to me. And I love these like, well, thinking about it, I actually kind of did already tell you everything. And she's like, well then, yeah, his status, she's like, I already know what more is there to know about. And she's like, is there something else? And he's like, well, actually, yes. We didn't finish what we started in that carriage, and I'm going to go over here and just let you know how I feel about you. And in this moment, he like goes to kiss her neck, which I was like, because I think that Jinshi's like, she won't let me kiss her outright, and I don't want to like invade that space for her because that would be non-consensual, but I do want to like, he makes a move. He's just like, let me make a move, and she, being the asexual queen that she is kind of like, I don't know if that's going to do anything for me. Because, yeah, I would react to that being like, okay, cool. I could relate so much to her in this moment being like, okay, cool. Jinshi, what are you doing? And he's like, does it make it clear what I mean? I love that. I love him being like, I'm kissing you on the neck. Do you understand that I want you physically, sexually, romantically in this moment? And she's like, I guess. But, and she's like, human saliva can be poisonous sometimes. I love that it's like her almost trying to talk herself into it, being like, well, I guess I could be okay with this because it's kind of poisonous, which is my deal. And Jinshi, hearing that, he gets kind of mad and says, well, light poisons don't work on you. He's like, you've built up an immunity and a tolerance to light poisons. And he just bit her on the neck. I was like, oh, you kinky bitches. Okay. And she's like, are you trying to bite me to death? I love it. I love it because it's almost like you got rid of my hairpin. Fine, I'll claim you this way, which is very Omegaverse. I was like, okay, we're going there. But also he's just like, he's like, do you like it rough? Because I can give it rough if you want that. I think she does. I think Mao Mao can be a little bit masochistic like Jinshi. And you know what? If they're a kinky duo, bring it on. Bring me kinky duo. I'm here for it. I love it. I love him grabbing her and then pulling her into a hug. Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. He's like, sometimes. And because what does she say there? Are you trying to bite me to death? And he's like, sometimes I really want to. Oh, I love it. I love it. She's like, what? She's like, what? This is your kink? Uh-oh. I love it. He's like, let's pick up where we left off at the Stronghold. And she's like, and now, she has that concerned look on her face, but you know what she does? You know what she does? Girl consents in that moment because she like does the caress of the scar. I'm like, girl. She's like, it really is clean. She initiated that. And that's all the consent that I needed in that moment, being like, okay. And I love he closes his eyes when he goes to kiss her. That's so sweet. And he's like, do you have poison in you too? In that moment, Mao Mao is like, I love poisons. And in this moment, Jinshi's like, so do I. They are made for one another. They are made for one another, and I love it. And damn you, Cho, for interrupting. Bless. Poor him. This poor kid. And she's like, oh, thank God you interrupted, because otherwise, I think it's not like Mao Mao doesn't want Jinshi's affection. I think Mao Mao does want Jinshi's affection. But I think Mao Mao, and I can totally relate to her, is like, what do I do? You know? Because I can totally relate to Mao Mao being like, okay, cool. Glad you want my affection. I'm glad you're showing affection to me. I appreciate it. I'm not exactly certain how to reciprocate. And so I feel like that's where Mao Mao is at right now, which is fine. Bless her heart. And then she's like, what's wrong with that guy? I love that she just like looks back at him and they're like, he's like, why do I always get interrupted? Jinshi, I would get used to that because this is a slow burn and I feel like you're going to get interrupted quite a bit, right? And then she just smiles and says he's very tired. Aww. But Mao Mao, she's not opposed to what he did. If she didn't like the biting and what he was doing and the advances he was making, if she didn't like it, she would have been like, ugh, what a jerk, or like something like that, or been disgusted. No. She was okay with it. She's just like, yeah, he'll have to get interrupted. She's going to make him work hard. But Jinshi, he's a masochist, so he probably likes it. And poor Gaoshin and the granny, they're both like, ugh. She's like, prepare a bed for him and some incense. I like that she lets him stay and doesn't, worry about him having to go and leave. I kind of like this dynamic for right now while we wait on season 3. This dynamic, because what it tells me is that Mao Mao is going to let him come visit her, and she's going to let him stay in the Verdigris house. And instead of Jinshi coming to see the 3 princesses, he's coming to see the apothecary. And I'm so on board with that. I love it. And him like grabbing a hold of her waist. I love that last season we had him coming up from behind her whenever Aduo left and like grabbing a hold of her and being like just not letting Mao Mao go. and needing her to be in that space for him, to comfort him. And this season, we get the flip side where instead of him coming up from behind her, he's now in front of her. Like before, in season 1, it was like a hidden gesture. He didn't want to make known his affection towards her. And so the gesture was from behind so she couldn't see him. But now that she knows who he is, now that she knows he likes her, he's able to show this in front of her. Just love, 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 love. Love it. I love that she's his comfort. And that's just so beautiful. And then she's just like, he's putting my legs to sleep, but fine. Her mixing up the medicine with him asleep on her lap. I love every part of it. It's so cute. So then we have the end credit scene. The end credit scene where Lolan, aka Will Shizui, where Shizui takes the pin that was given to her as a symbol of love that she's supposed to give back to Mao Mao one day, that she trades it off to the guy for a random cicada pin. Okay, let's break this down. So, all right. So, you know what? I have so many torn thoughts about this. I am going to try to like word my thoughts correctly and see how I want to phrase everything. And I'm sure I'm going to revise it as I go in my head, telling it to you all. So we get the bullet hit the broadest part of the pin and kept her from dying. Sure. We don't know where exactly. I'm sure those of you that read the novel can tell me this down below. I'm okay with knowing this part. I am assuming that the man she's trading the pin for is still within the same kingdom as the Imperial Palace. So there is a chance that the hair stick will get back to Mao Mao through trade, through whatever, which Mao Mao thought would happen. So to be fair, Mao Mao kind of expected it. It was a possibility. She even brought it up to Shizui herself, and she'll see the bullet part in it, and she'll know that Shizui lived. And that will be the way that Shizui sees her again. And that'll be that. And then we'll never see Shizui again after that. Okay, that's fine. I feel bad for Shizui in the sense, I know that she's free now. I appreciate that Shizui can go and live her own life without the burden of being a concubine, without the burden of being under her mother's thumb and all the things that go with it, and not being a doll, but being her own person. And she looks good with the hair down. It's super cute. It is. And she has the little cicada jade piece. To Mao Mao is, what did she say? Is it Tamamo? Is it Tama? Yeah. He's like, oh, my name is Tamamo? Tamamo. Tamamo is her name. And it's Tama like jade and Mo for seaweed. Like blessings from the ocean. She's like, I want to go to the other side of the sea. So it seems like she's going away and she's never coming back. Which I feel a little bit bad in the sense that she's never going to see Suirei again. And Suirei was like, Suirei really loved her and all that. So I feel bad that she's, with this gesture of her exchanging the pin for the cicada, it's the jade pin the hair stick will probably eventually filter its way back towards the Imperial Palace in some way or form, or maybe it won't. Maybe Mao Mao will never see it again and never know that she's okay. You can do with that what you think. I'm a little torn about it. But I am sad that Suirei and Mao Mao will probably never see her again. They're just writing her out of the story by saying she's going across the ocean and we'll never see Shizui again. But it's supposed to be like Shizui gets to live her life the way she wants to. And I like that. I am glad that she gets that. But I don't know if I'm fully on board with the way this series handles Shizui being alive. I feel like, I guess if you were like, oh, Mao Mao can't see Shizui anymore because it'll undo like the beauty of the dance and everything like that, then sure, that's fine. I agree with that. I don't think showing her at the end here adds anything to the story. especially if you know that because she's gave the hairpin to this random sales guy, then there's probably no way she's ever going to give it back to Mao Mao. So that means to us, the viewer, we're probably never going to see her again. And so the author just kept her alive as they like, oh, look, she survived and gets to live her life now, which to me, I'm just going to say it. I'm an English teacher. I read a lot of books. I've taught symbolism in classes. It's a little cliche. It's a little cliche. It's a little cliche. So I'm like, ugh. And I think that why I was so frustrated, and we're going to get finally back to this, with the children and with Shisui living, I think, in my opinion, why I was so frustrated is that I thought when the kids died, that was a horrific moment of like, oh, we took a dark turn. And we established that there are stakes in this series. People can die. Those kids could die. Shisui could die. Okay. And it was giving me vibes of like series like Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, which are two of my favorite series. And in those series, people die and they don't come back. And a lot of times you as the audience are like, but if you kept them alive, you could have this really cool symbolic moment and the symbolism, and you're just going to kill them off and that's it. And it reminded me of Naomi Smalls in Drag Race, where she's like, life's not fair. Get used to it. And it's like, and it's such a moment because I love those series because the English teacher in me that's used to the many symbolic cliches that we see over and over and over again in some narratives, and some of them are really good narratives, don't get me wrong. The symbolism of Shisui living and being the tanuki that's timid and gets like all of the comments people have said of why it's good that she lives, I'm not disagreeing with anybody. But as somebody that's seen that symbolism and those tropes done a lot, it kind of is refreshing to watch a show that goes, I'm not going to do what you expect. And you're just going to have to get over it. And you're like, okay. Like a death out of nowhere that comes out. Like I'll use Puella Magi Madoka Magica as an example. There was an episode in that series that I went, oh, that entire series, for example, made me go, oh. But that's why I love it so much, is because it takes those expectations that you have and it just says, no, I don't want to do that. Life's not fair. So this is what you're going to get and you have to deal with it. And with the kids, the reason why I thought that them dying was such an important like tonal shift is because of the conversation, like we talked about the intro with Lihaku, when Lihaku's like, I hate that we do this. I hate that we kill the kids. I hate that the members of the innocents have to die. And what I thought it was that it was going to lead to like a pretty heavy conversation in the series about, yeah, there are these historical practices that have been done throughout history that were really kind of messed up. And maybe we need to talk about them because this is a historical fiction in some ways. I wouldn't describe the genre of this as historical fiction. They make the disclaimer and everything, but it's more like a mystery and drama. But one thing that I hate about a lot of writers of historical fiction is that they are afraid of the fiction part of historical fiction. Some of them try to keep so historically accurate where I'm like, you're not writing nonfiction. You're not writing a historical documentary. It's a fictional story. You can change the story to go against what was historically there. I'm not saying there should be cyborgs and robots walking around in Apothecary Diaries, because that would be messed up and there'd be no reasoning for it. But I think that you could have the Emperor and Jinshi deciding, no, we're not going to kill every clan member. That's what they did historically, but we're a fictional story. We can do whatever the hell we want. We're actually going to have a conversation and change the game and do something different and alter this and offer this alternative timeline from what was historically presented. And I think that's interesting. I think that's something you can talk about and create commentary about and have a discussion with, rather than just, we have to be historically accurate, you know? And I'm not saying that's what Apothecary Diaries is doing, but I thought that if the kids did die, it could have led to an opportunity of Lihaku and the others having this conversation. In the end, I'm happy with the kids living, and I think that the author did a really good job of justifying it and making it work. Of course, now Jinshi then be like, whew, glad we don't have that blood on our hands and have those hard conversations. Thank goodness we avoided that. But I do think the mangaka and the author rather justifies it. So I'm totally okay with the kids living. I think that decision with what the author did was really well done, and I'm totally on board with it. With Shisui, I would have left her dead. a controversial but brave take. You can say all you want about the symbolism, and I'm like, yeah, been there, done that, read that in other stories. And that's fine. If you've not read that in other stories and you thought the symbolism here was flawless and perfect, I won't disagree with you in a bit. I think it is a very good symbolic full circle moment. But to me, I think her dying, even if Mao Mao didn't find out, even if just one character found out, like the guy leaving the palace, if he saw her body and was like, oh, she died, and he gave her like a proper burial or whatnot, and he took the hairpin and ran off with it, and that's how it circulated back around. And then when Mao Mao got the pin, she could have thought that Lolan escaped or whatever, or Shisui escaped and whatnot, because multiple people fired at her, for the record. But, you know, somebody in the comments was talking about the accuracy of FIFAs, and I'm like, historical fiction, you can do whatever you want. So I was like, you know, I feel like it's not a happy ending if Shisui dies. It's not. Does it also not let her have the picture perfect little bow on top symbolic full circle moment? You're right. But life's not fair, you know? And it's one of those moments of like, to me, I think her dance at the end would have had a stronger impact on me personally if she had actually died. And those were her final moments. And it would have been heartbreaking. It wouldn't have been fair. It would have been cruel to do that to her. But damn, what a moment. And I would remember it. Now, here's the thing. In series where characters have cruel and unfitting deaths in anime, we remember those characters a lot more than the ones that get away. I think we do. I think people talk more about the characters that died, and you're like, that's not fair. They shouldn't have died. How dare they die? And that's just heartbreaking, and oh my God. But the ones that just live, you're like, oh yeah, they lived anyway. I think it just has more impact. And the thing that got me, and I think the reason I was frustrated, was I have to adjust myself. And I could be wrong. Apothecary Diaries could prove me wrong, and I will hold it to it. I love this series so much, but those moments of thinking that Shisui could be dead and the kids could be dead, they added stakes to this series where I was like, oh, characters we really care about can die. And so we should be extra careful when watching the series of like, oh, I hope things are going to be fine. The fact that the kids lived and the fact that Shisui lived kind of made me go, oh, this author's not going to take those chances. So that kind of like took a little bit of the stakes off. Like, not even Suirei died. Like, I mean, Shisho and Shinmei died, but they were the villains, right? So in my mind, I'm like, so what you're saying, Sho, is that we probably don't have to worry about any of the main characters dying. We're not going to have to worry about that. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. But if it comes to a later season when there's a cliffhanger and it's like, oh, is Pyron going to die? I'm going to be like, no, she's not. The mangaka's not going to kill her. The author's not going to kill her. Because that would upset too many people. So we're not going to do that. And I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But I don't know. So I don't know. It made me go, okay, we're not going to go that route. So we're not going to be an Isayama. We're not going to be that. And that's fine. Not everybody can be. But I still love Apothecary Diaries an awful, awful lot. I love it so, so much. But am I mad that Shisui's dead or alive rather than dead? No, I think it's fine. But now as a character, I'm just like, okay, you did your full circle writers moment. You tied off the symbolism with a nice, perfect bow and set her off to sea. And to me, it doesn't have as much impact for me as it would have if she had died. And then Mao Mao was left in the dark, which it looks like Mao Mao is going to be left in the dark probably forever, which I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But that's just where I was coming from. I get the symbolism of Shisui living. I get it. It's a beautiful, symbolic moment. I was just like, you had a moment to be gritty, author. You had a moment to be gritty and take a risk. And you were just like, I'm not going to make people mad, is what it comes off as to me. But I could be wrong. I'm wrong about many things. And those are just my opinions. So am I happy that Shisui gets another life somewhere else? Yeah, it kind of sucks she can't see her sister or friends anymore, but, you know, I guess she'll make new friends and go somewhere else and live a life by herself for a while. I guess that'll be good for her. You have no no resources or connections to people you care about, but you're alive. So I guess that's fine. But yeah, if you don't think too hard about it, it doesn't sound too bad. So I feel like it's okay. I'm glad that Shisui didn't just die, but I don't know. I'm indifferent about it, I guess. I'm just like, So it is. But I am glad that I am glad that the kids lived, and I am glad that Cho has a presence in the story again. That Cho is going to be with Mao Mao. That's super exciting. I'm all about that. I love that. And I'm super excited to see where that goes, because that will just be a thorn in Jinshi's side, and we all live for that. So this episode, though, as a whole, season 2 as a whole, amazing. Now, the romantic in me, do I really like the Locken and Fang Mian love story from season 1? I really do. But I think overall, I think season 2 was stronger than season 1. I really do. I really think I liked season 2 better than I did season 1. Although season 1 had some amazing setup moments. I'm glad I got to read the story, The Last Eunuch of China in season 1. I might need to find a book to read for season 3, because I did kind of miss this season. I missed being able to talk to you all about a book alongside my reactions. I just did not have time with my reaction schedule and everything this spring to read a book alongside it. It just was too much. But if we get some, some information about when season 3 comes out, when it does, then I may have to start planning. Maybe a book about Empress Shishi. That might be fun to read. If you all have any books that you think would be fun to read alongside this story that might give some additional information, then feel free to comment those down below. But yeah, I'm not going to diss Shisui being alive. I'm just going to be like, come on, mangaka. Come on, author. Give me some grit. But you know what? If you substitute the grit for kinky shenanigans, I'm not going to complain. I won't complain then. I'll take back everything I said. I'll be like, never mind. We're all good. And who knows? Maybe Shisui will find her way back in the story in the future. Maybe she'll find her way back into the story and it'll all work out, and I will eat my words. I will literally grab a pair of shorts and start eating them in the discussion. Time will tell, and you all can point and laugh at me when it does and be like, told you so, bitch. And I'll be like, you got me, gal. So meanwhile, in the meantime, I'm super excited. I've talked for like an hour and 10 minutes about this episode, but it was so worth it. I will not be back probably next week with Apothecary Diaries, but sometime in July or August, keep looking on the channel, look on Patreon, look at my update videos. I will definitely be reacting to the chibi shorts when they're all compiled together, and I'll look at the song lyrics and talk about those, and we'll have a good old discussion about season 2 to kind of round out. Maybe by then I'll have read your comments for episodes 23 and 24 and had some more thoughts that we can talk about in the video. So in that case, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of the Apothecary Diaries. Bye!